Hello guys and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to do a free-to-play essentially tier list, sort of discussing heroes, how they perform specifically for free-to-play units, as well as talking about maybe some light and shadow units that you can get basically without paying any money, and how good they are, and also how maybe they compare to the LS counterparts. So if you're looking for a specific hero in a class, if you're looking at mages, for example, maybe the LS mages are that much more superior. So if you really like mages, you may need to spend some money for them. So I'll sort of talk about that aspect as well. What I'll say in regards to heroes and units that you require to actually get them up to that needed 11 star. Essentially, when you have your first ever unit, don't look at that as the one that you will 100% be maxing out and putting up to the standard of the other units. Essentially, you will require 2 copies of a unit to get them to 7 star, right? So you need one to begin with, plus one, plus food. And I will say that in this video quite a lot, more actually for this portion specifically. But food, fodder, that's basically just the stuff you need alongside the extra copies of that specific hero. So if you have one hero, so you get yourself a Milton, for example, here in the picture, or a Terrence, you'll need one more copy of them to get them to 6 star. That 6 star then with just food can go to 7 star. Once they are at 7 star, you then need 2 more copies of that specific hero plus the food to get them to 8 star. And then from 8 star to 10 star, all you need is food. And when you have them at 10 star, you need 4 more copies of that specific heroes to get them to 11, as well as the food, right? So that's basically the breakdown on what you need. So if you're starting out and you're getting, one copy of somebody, don't think of them as going to be as somebody who's going to be the one that you level up. You sort of just want to take your time, progress through the story, see what you find, and when you do, for example, get yourself 2 Primos or 2 Barleys or 2 Erics, you can start looking at them in a bit more, concentrate on them a little more. But when they're at 7, you're going to have to just observe on what you get and sort of make that decision on who to use in the end, right? Because an 11 star or a 10 star Derby, even if she's not the best, or any other unit that's maybe a little lower on that list, let's say Grigor, he's not the highest of priests. Even so, getting 10 star Grigor is a lot better than a 7 star Flora, for example. So you got to sort of make those decisions as you go, really. So let's start here and talk about this sort of rough tier list for you guys. So I've done another tier list. I know there's another tier list overall, but this is specifically for free to play, and I kind of want to explain the placements and remove the light and shadow discussion from this list. And it's free to play, right? Because I can tell you this character's good, this card is great, but maybe you go into the game thinking that these characters are amazing, and then you realize you can't get them because you're gonna have to find spend some money to get those heroes. So let's talk about specifically the free to play units that I can say to you that if you really like them and you really want them, you can quite easily get them to the top level, right? You can get them to the 11 star, and if you want to go further, that's also available. So these are the units that you can easily obtain and 100% should be aiming to get up if they're on the top, S, A tier. They should be your focus. So let's begin first with Terrence, which is a very easy assassin to talk about. So I think Terrence generally you would say is an A tier. You could also say he's an S tier, right? And then maybe some people could be a little annoyed by this whole idea. It just is what it is. He's still one of the strongest assassins out there. I would personally say he's still an S tier hero. And you know what? For the sake of this, for specifically the normal factions, we'll put him at S because Light and Shadow are not involved, right? Now we move on to Milton, a mage, great mage. He's strong, does some damage. You can set up the runes really nicely to put him up at that B tier. Really strong hero again. There's not going to be too many Ds, I think. Well, actually, I'm lying. There's going to be a lot of Ds. Now we're looking at assassin. Okay, I don't want to move too much. So Isla, we're looking at probably around the C tier. Not the best warrior. Nothing that crazy about her. I will say if you are looking for a strong warrior and you have one copy of her, don't even think about it, right? If you end up having a bunch of copies and you want to get it to 10 star, to 11 star to help you through the game, she's going to do fine for you. But I'm just saying, she's not that great. All right, going again, skipping a few. Now we're looking at Bella. Bella again is a nice B tier assassin. She's fine. She has some CC. She does decent damage. I wouldn't say she's bad at all. If you get some copies of her, she's good. She's not going to be your primary DPS though, so do note that she's not going to be your best damage dealer in your team most likely, especially out of the assassins. Beelzebub, I will say is probably in all honesty, I'll say D, maybe C, but for the sake of this, I have to say D. You know, I can't. Not everybody's S, not everybody's B, not everybody's C. There has to be some D's. But yeah, he's just not that great. His damage is not that high. Just what he provides is not amazing. He has a some CC on his full skill, but that's a bit inconsistent. So I wouldn't say he's that good, right? Now let's keep moving. Flora, I think she's a great character. I think she's an A tier priest, especially on this list, and for that, and it's also the reason she's up there is because I think Margaret is an S tier priest, and when we're talking about specifically non-light and shadow, and we're looking at free-to-play units, we're looking at these being the ones, right? These are the ones that you should be going for. So this upper area here, B, A, S, are the ones that you should be happy to get. The ones below, you should be. It's okay, but it's nothing that's crazy. Now we're gonna go into Brook. Brook is a C tierer. I wouldn't say he's that bad. He can be alright, but he's just not as good as the others, right? Just sitting in that C tier. If you do get him, it's not the worst thing to level him up, but do note that there's a lot more ranges that are better than him than are worse than him. That sounded a bit off, but we'll go with it. So next thing in this list here is Patras. Patras is a D tier tank. He's got a bit more tanky recently. There were some changes to him. However, he's just a D tier tank. Nothing crazy about him. He doesn't do anything special. He does a stun on block. He does some stun on his ability, but nothing that brings him to like a super high level. He's just a rock. In design as well as in what he really does as a tank. He just sort of sits there. Don't expect him to last for too long. I mean, you're facing these divine, beings with like unpowered arrows. A rock is not going to last that long, to be honest. Now we're moving on to Grigor. He's a nice B tierer. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say he's that amazing, but he's not bad either, right? So I've said in the previous video that the priests basically don't have anyone that's bad, and Grigor's pretty much the definition of that. Like, he's not bad. He's maybe has some shortcomings. He doesn't heal as much as other people. The support is great, but it just is what it is, right? He's not bad. He's not amazing. He's sort of sitting there in that middle, but great. He's good. He's good. He's good. Edward, I'd say specifically looking at Rangers, pretty much a D tierer. He doesn't do anything that's that great. His damage is not high. He's not doing some crazy CC that's like helping people. He's inconsistent with it. The whole circle thing feels buggy. It's just not a good character. If you get some of him, I would say, if you have a lot of copies, and I may keep saying this over and over, but if you end up having a bunch of copies of one hero, it's still worth to level them up, even if they're low on the list, because they will still do a lot for you. However, when you're looking into the future, they're going to be just completely outshined by the other heroes. Waga, she's a great hero. She was a bit weaker back in the day, and even stronger back in the day. But at the moment, as she sits, very strong priest. She still has that niche sort of branding to her with the energy, providing and some healing as well. But she's good. Right, if you have a strong damage dealer, you put her on them, they will do a lot more because they can keep casting. So yeah, she's really strong, and she deserves to be in that middle slot of the whole tier list for this. Rennie, I think, is I'd say I'd have to put her in B. Rangers are generally pretty okay, aside from the Edward and the I forgot his name already, Brook. They're generally pretty okay. So Rennie sits in the middle here in this tier. Same goes for Diana. She's there as well as Liv. All three of them are basically the golden girls of middle tier rangers. They're just consistent in what they need to do, and they just do fine. They do some damage, or they'll support the team, or they'll do damage and support the team. It's just both are good. So I wouldn't say any of these are really bad in any fashion. They're sort of B tier rangers. Then we're looking at thing, I get confused sometimes with the picture of the two. So that's Primo there. So this is Frode. Generally, the agreement is that Frode and Primo are both sitting in the C tier. Not that they are that bad. I don't think they're actually horrible to have. I think you'd be okay with getting them. And it is somewhat fair to say C and above, every hero can be okay. It really depends on the team and how you've sort of focused your setup, but they sit there at that point, and it's deserved, I think, especially when you compare to how the others perform. I'm gonna skip archers for now. Renaud, I think he is. I think he's a B tier. I think he's a B tier tank, warrior, whatever. He's strong. He's got his pluses. The damage reduction aspect for the crystal, as well as his passive, and just generally being fairly tanky. He does alright. He's not a disappointment. If you get him up, he's gonna be fine. Considerably better than some other heroes like Patras, who's just a rock, but he's a bear with a bit more oomph to him. So he sits there, not bad. If you get him and you get the copies, great. Barley is a strong assassin. I'd say he's a solid A tier. He's had some changes, whatever, but he heals, he does some damage. He's just generally strong. If you get copies of Barley, level him up. It's worth it. Eric, I think, is an S tier tank. And if you sort of look at him, he's maybe more for the PvP side of the game. So the shielding, whatever, less stronger enemies. He performs exceptionally well. But yeah, like I always say, not bad at all. He's an S tierer. He's arguably the second best tank in the game. And in some cases, if the enemies are weak enough, he's better than Lionel. So it really, it depends on the content that you're facing. So I will say now ahead of time that Lionel and Eric are both S tier tanks. Both are amazing. I wouldn't put them any lower than that. Then moving on, I think I'll cover Cardinal, Katarina, and Yasuko sort of in one. I think Cardinal, Katarina, and Yasuko, all three of these are A tier. And I just feel like, maybe in some tier list you could say tier 1, tier 2, whatever for some of these, but when you're breaking it down, actually, why did I do that? Why did I do that? I had him in mind as sort of point to make, but this isn't about LS, so we'll skip past that point. But Cardinal is basically an A-tier hero. He does quite similar stuff to Eric, but he does have his own nuances with a revive, as well as less people are affected by his shield, but he just does good. And I feel like he sits with the same downsides as Eric does, but yeah, they just do fine. In terms of if you get any three of these warriors, so you're looking at Eric, Lionel, and Cardinal, they all three are worth leveling up. So for sure, do it. Without question, I'd say if you get any one of these at 4 copies, that should be your focus for the main tank for your team. Right, moving on. We're going to Tell. I think Tell and we're speaking here specifically Forest, Undead, and Legion. Tell is an S tier Ranger. People had some thoughts saying he's not as good as he used to be, that is true. He's not as good as he used to be, but he's still great and amazing. And you see him dish out damage, that rivals Felix in some battles. Right? Obviously, the setup does differ. How the battle plays out differs. But if you take some of the other Rangers, you will see that they'll never reach those numbers. Right? Liv has to line up every single one of her shots to consider outperforming Tell just by doing his standard average work. Right? So he's up there. He's strong. If you get copies of Tell, level him up as a strong DPS hero. He's there. He's up there. He's powerful. It's worth it. Moving on, Gisela is, I think, a B tier mage. She sits somewhat similar to Milton, just generally does some damage, whatever. She has some CC with her sheep, so it can be really good to counter certain enemies, certain opposition, especially in like things like Guild War. It's just she's strong, right? So if you get copies of her, don't be discouraged to put some focus into her. She's going to do well for you. Not bad at all. Then we move on to Darby. I think Darby is a C tier ranger, and she's better than Brooke. She is better than Brooke. However, she's maybe not at the stage of where the others are. And I'd say you could argue with her being B tier, and there's always this consistent argument of where Darby sits. Some people consider her to be really, really bad. Some people like her enough to say she may be an A tier, but that's up to your sort of decisions and how you play your team, as well as how you perceive these characters. But my personal opinion, she's a C tier hero. I've not seen her do anything that crazy. And when I see heroes perform well when I face them in the game, I can say, you know what, I do agree that they are this, they are that. But I just not seen her do anything that's exceptional. I think Norton is maybe a B tier, C tier, sorry. Kind of like Isla with a bit of the CC. He got more consistent recently, so he's not that bad, but he doesn't exactly do much to be an amazing warrior. I think he's just a very much a C tier. Like, when you look at heroes that are B, A, and S, and focusing more on B, they tend to do something extra to provide to the team, or just do good damage, which isn't the case with some of these. Like for warriors, they just don't do enough to tank, so it's hard to put him anywhere else. And same goes for Seth. I think Seth is probably the worst warrior in the game. He's not good at what he needs to do. That's the problem, right? Some of these heroes have, shields they provide, or they have invulnerability to damage, or they just generally have a pretty decent kit surrounding them. He just doesn't have that. He's just bad, right? And to be fair, I'd even argue that you can put Patras at C tier, actually. I don't know why I put him this low. I think Patras is pretty much, like I said, he's a rock, but he's pretty much as tanky as these three. He's still able to hold his own. He just doesn't do anything that's amazing that you make note of it afterwards. Ragnar, I think, is a nice B tier mage. Maybe even C tier mage, actually. I'll say C tier because I don't feel comfortable putting him in with some of these other heroes. But he's not bad at all. I feel like if you get copies of him again, he'll still do a lot for you. Sota, I think I had perceptions of him being much stronger, but I don't feel like he deserves to be A tier. I've not seen him do that much. And these are personal opinions at the end of the day, guys. Some of these were obviously discussed with plenty of other people to make some decisions, what they thought, whatever, but he just sort of sits there. He's in the B tier. He used to be in D tier, so it's a bit of a jump. And if you get him, he's still going to do his job for you. He's still going to do a great job for you, but you may want him with someone who's a bit more tanky as an assassin with a secondary sort of role of tanking for him, something like a Terrence Barley. Both can do well to sort of keep him alive and allow him to ramp up and dish out the damage that he can do and has potential for. I think Osh, if we're looking at specifically mages for free-to-play units, I will say he's an S tier mage. You could argue A tier, to be fair, when you compare it to some of the others, but if you like mages, he's pretty much your only option really for doing high damage and having some CC in the kit. And does that finish off? Okay, archers now. Archers, I'm going to put in A tier. I sort of kept him a bit behind because he was changed quite a lot from what he used to be. But his ability is kind of scary. The whole damage equal share, it does sort of sting. When he pops it, you realize you're not just you're not doing enough damage. So I will say he's an A tier. He wouldn't be sitting in that S tier, to be fair, but he is strong and he's much better than he used to be. And now let me just reflect here at the bottom. Okay, that covers it. There's no more of the main factions here. So the last thing I wanted to say for this particular list is that essentially there are some light and shadow units that you can obtain just by playing, right? And I know you can 100% get some of these units and get them to 11 star. You can. It's not impossible. They're all available for you to do, and you do that through the Kingdom Medal store. As the events come by, you get some of this currency, and when you get to 120, you can pick up a unit, right? So what that means that if you're, for example, really interested in getting yourself an Olivia or a Suvir or a Gar or a Ramil or a Felix or Celia, any of these units, you can get them from that store. It does take a while, but for example, if you find yourself doing some pulls and you see that you got yourself 2 copies of Felix, right? You have him at 7 star. Now you're stuck needing 2 more. what you can do is start looking at the Kingdom Medal store as a way to still progress despite having this amazing luck as a free-to-play player, to know that you can still make use of that hero going forward rather than just staying at 7 star without having extra copies. And if you do end up getting another copy randomly, woohoo, right? You're maybe 60 medals away to actually get them to 10 star, enough copies of them to get them to 10 star. So all of these units are available. I'm talking about free to play, and what I'm saying with free to play is that all these units just, you can find them much easier. You get a lot more shards that give you specific faction sort of drops. So you may be looking at getting, um, you know, you get yourself a Legion drop. It may have an Eric Tell or Osh. Um, you know, they may drop like crazy for you, and then you know that you can get them up, and you know that they are strong. So you can save this, screenshot it, whatever. Windows Shift S, press it, go over it, take it. It should be useful for you. But in regards to the units that you can get maybe easier, there is another event called the Brave Store. The Brave event, and that one basically means fighting these enemies and putting in the units will give you the medals for them. In those events, you can get yourself, and this is, I could be changed, I'm not 100% sure, but Yulv and Sinclair were both units that were available. So what I will say is that these two you can maybe still get much easier than you can get the other ones. As soon as that event comes along, you can get one of these copies, which makes it easier to know that 100% as that event comes, you can pick these up. But the rest of these will be available in your wish list. These are parts of the game that allow you to make sure you get those. So those are worth noting. But other than that, guys, I'm gonna have to end it there. Just to say, you need 8 copies of a hero to get them maxed out. So don't go crazy. When I say maxed out, I mean 11 star, but don't go crazy getting excited over 1 copy of a hero. You know that you're going to need way more, and even when you begin in the game, the base levels are not going to save you. You're going to need to start getting stars quite consistently to keep progressing at a good speed throughout the campaign. So don't throw away any heroes that are in the top area of this list. I think anyone sitting at maybe B 100%, and with the exception of maybe a couple like Darby, maybe some of these mages or Ragnall. Don't throw away anybody else. Like, keep all of these; they'll all be useful down the line. And maybe you just should be waiting to see, as soon as you get 4 copies of a hero, then you know you can get them to 10 star, which is just 30% away from being where their max potential is, essentially. So in terms of just leveling up and powering them up. So do keep that in mind. I'll end it here. Hope this helps. It's sort of rough, I will admit, but I've got some basic notes with me. I thought I'll run it through. This is free to play for you, and you don't have to worry about spending any money for these. So best of luck, and hope you get the pulls you want. Bye bye.